I'm here with Chris Lucas, and we're in Melbourne. We're at the Lucas Group HQ, and we've just had a really fascinating discussion about Chris's journey, and he's had an eclectic history in terms of the industries he's worked in, but I'll hand it over to Chris to tell you guys a little bit about what he does before we unpack his story just a little bit. So, Chris, do you want to say hello and tell everybody what you do?
Hi, so I'm Chris Lucas. I'm the founder and CEO of the Lucas Group, so we're probably the fastest growing restaurant group in the country here in Australia. We've got restaurants all over Melbourne, and we've just opened our first big restaurant in Sydney, which is Chin Chin. And we're looking to expand nationally across the country with all our cool brands that we've been building over the last decade or so. We employ about 750 people. And as I said, that we're in a really fast growth phase, having doubled in size just this year, and again we're looking to double again in the next couple of years. So it's exciting times.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so one of the things we were just talking about, Chris, was this idea of success and loneliness in success. So you've been across industries, you've achieved success in a number of industries before the restaurant industry was tech and IT. How do you navigate this idea of loneliness? And we talked about it being an inevitable.
Well, I think you've got to be comfortable with it because it comes hand in hand with success.
Yes.
And I think that if you loneliness is in a way, some people look at loneliness as a bad thing, and there's no doubt, loneliness in terms of the human interaction level is important because, we don't want to experience loneliness in our lives. We want to be able to partner with people, and we want to be able to have family and friends around us. But I'm not so much talking about that. Loneliness to have time within yourself to be able to intellectualize and think about the decisions and how you want to drive your life. And I think loneliness is a part of that. Loneliness being, in my view, a definition of a separation between you and the rest of the world to a certain extent. I see myself as being in a small space where I can freely think about the future and the business and people and relationships, and I actually enjoy that loneliness. It's lonely because I've never really regarded myself as part of the mass.
Yes.
And I think it's been endemic in my DNA that I've always seen myself as standing out from the crowd, being an outsider, and a lot of my success I think has been driven by that attitude.
Do you think that loneliness gives you a sense of clarity when there's no
Absolutely.
noise around?
Yeah, it certainly gives you an opportunity to think clearly because you don't have competing voices. And I think, again, if you talk to any leader, you need to be decisive. You need to be able to make clear decisions, and you need to be able to give clear directions. Nothing confuses people more than an indecisive boss. And I think to be able to have clarity, to be able to really be able to think through the consequences, the risks, the failures, the rewards, you do need that time. And being a little lonely and having that space, I think for me at least, helps me crystallise my thoughts much better.
How do you create that? I get that. I guess that space for yourself, especially when there's all these pressures pulling you from all these different directions. Is it just like the state of mind?
Look, it's a state of mind. I think it's also for me it's in my personality. While I'm a very friendly, gregarious sort of person, I'm also a person that I think I do tend to hold people at a bit of a distance.
Yes.
There's a certain point I don't really want people going beyond. Yes. And I'm very protective of that. And so I think if I didn't have that quite frankly it would be difficult for me to charter day-to-day life. So it sort of just comes as part of my personality. I think people sort of get the message that there's a certain boundary and there's a certain distance that I need to be able to operate in.
Awesome. Okay, so the last question that I love asking everybody, right, is if you could wind back the clock at the start of your journey, whether it was the start of your tech journey, the Lucas Group, life journey, what would you tell your younger self if your younger self were listening?
Well, first of all, there's no such thing as regrets. There's no doubt about that. I think that probably the one thing that has seen me through in my entire life is following my instincts.
Yes.
And any time I've never done that, I've listened to other people or been convinced to do something else other than what I feel deep down should be the right thing to do, it's invariably led to a mistake or a failure. And there's nothing wrong with failure. In fact, you need failure to succeed. But I think following your gut instinct, for me, it's about always being true to myself. Am I comfortable with what I'm doing?
Yes.
Or what I'm about to do? Does it sit right?
Yeah.
I don't overanalyze things.
Yeah.
And I'm quite as a result, I'm able to make decisions very clearly, very quickly, where many people tend to fiddle around and overanalyze and, and sometimes almost make no decisions. And I think over the last 30 or so years, that's probably the one thing that I would keep telling myself and have told myself from the very beginning. I think as a young man, you don't quite have that confidence.
Yes.
But that confidence grows, and that self-belief that you must follow your gut instincts.
I love it. That decisiveness has a lot of merit, right?
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
I love decisiveness.
That's great. Okay, so if anybody wants to check out what you do, check out the Lucas Group, check out any of the new ventures, where can they go?
Well, they can obviously go to our restaurants. That's one thing. Go onto our websites.
Melbourne, Australia.
Yeah, Melbourne, Australia. So we've got Kisume, which is an amazing hot Japanese brand. Chin Chin, which is the world famous Asian fusion restaurant here in Flinders Lane. There's also Chin Chin in Sydney, which is amazing, which has only just opened up 5-6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And of course all our other restaurants like Hawker Hall and Baby Pizzeria, and and there's more to come. We've got another 5 or 6 on the drawing board in the next 12 months, so it's a very exciting time.
It's super exciting. Okay, so we'll link all that stuff in the notes. But this has been Chris Lucas in Melbourne. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Pleasure.